The first time Sakusa Kiyomi realized he had a problem, it was a Tuesday. Not just any Tuesday, the Tuesday Hinata 𝙨𝙬𝙪 had come back from Brazil with sand still metaphorically in his hair, and a vertical jump that made Atsumu's eyes turn into twin suns. That Tuesday, Sakusa had watched Mia Atsumu, his setter, the one who threw tosses that landed exactly where Sakusa's palm wanted them, the one who annoyed him with a persistence that bordered on art, slap Hinata on the back and say, 𝙨𝙬𝙪, let's stay late. I wanna try something with ya. Sakusa had stopped mid-stretch 𝙨𝙬𝙪-kun. Atsumu had called him Omi-kun for years before Sakusa had even grudgingly admitted they were friends. 2 years of relentless, grinning, Omi-kun, your mask's crooked, and Omi-kun, you're looking extra murderous today, and Omi-kun, I saved you the seat next to me on the bus, don't make that face. Years of earning that stupid affectionate suffix, and now here was Hinata, fresh off a plane, collecting one like it was a free sample at a grocery store. So yes, a problem. Phase 1, the jersey. The plan, if you could call it that, and Sakusa did not, because calling it a plan implied he cared, started on a Thursday. Practice had run late. The jackals were dragging themselves toward the locker room, a tangle of sweaty limbs and tired voices. Bakuto was already halfway through a story about owl migration that no one had asked for. Hinata was bouncing alongside him, adding unnecessary sound effects. Atsumu was laughing, head tipped back, the long line of his throat exposed. Sakusa watched him for a beat too long and then looked away. The locker room was chaos as usual, towels snapping, lockers slamming, Inunaki trying to trip Thomas and failing spectacularly. Sakusa navigated it with practiced efficiency, peeling off his own sweat-soaked jersey and reaching for his bag. Only his hand closed on fabric that was not his. He knew immediately the jersey was too broad in the shoulder. The number on the back, a familiar 13 instead of his own 15, Mia, was printed across the shoulders in block letters. It smelled, faintly, of the same detergent Sakusa used. He'd noticed Atsumu bought the same brand months ago, and had filed that information away for no reason at all, but underneath was something warmer, something that made the back of his neck prickle. Put it back, said the rational part of his brain. Wear it, said something much louder and significantly more deranged. Sakusa pulled it over his head. He didn't make eye contact with anyone as he packed his bag. He didn't need to. The locker room didn't exactly go silent, but the quality of noise shifted. A drop towel here, a cut of sentence there. Sakusa felt the weight of several gazes land on him, and slide away just as quickly. Mian, bless him, was the only one brave enough. Sakusa, you're wearing Mia's jersey. Am I? Sakusa said, flat as a surgical table. I hadn't noticed. Mian opened his mouth, closed it. The man had captained the jackals for years, weathered every personality storm the team could throw at him, and he still looked like he'd just watched a cat open a door. Right, he said slowly. Sure. Atsumu, crucially, had seen nothing. He was still by the showers, towel around his neck, saying something to Hinata about approach angles. His voice carried over the din, bright and easy. Sakusa stood there, swimming slightly in a jersey that wasn't his, and waited. The moment Atsumu turned, mid-sentence, and his eyes landed on Sakusa, the words died in his throat. It was almost impressive. Mia Atsumu, who never shut up, who could talk through a fire alarm and a service ace and probably the apocalypse, stopped completely. His mouth stayed open around whatever sound he'd been about to make. His eyes tracked down from Sakusa's face to the number on his chest, back up. Sakusa tilted his head, the picture of innocence. What? Nothing, Atsumu said. His voice came out strangled. He cleared his throat. Nothing, just. He gestured vaguely at Sakusa's entire torso. That, yeah, got the wrong one, Omi-kun. Did I? Sakusa looked down at himself, feigning mild surprise. So I did. He didn't take it off. Atsumu's ears went pink, the tips of them, the very edges, like someone had pressed a hot iron just close enough to threaten. He turned away too fast, nearly walked into a locker, and said something to Hinata that was probably intended to be words, but came out as a string of vowels. Sakusa finished packing his bag with immense satisfaction. Samu, something is wrong. You messaged me at 11 at night for this. Omi wore my jersey. My jersey. Not his. Mine, with my name on his back. He just stood there all casual, like he didn't just. He looked cute. Wow. He finally lost his mind and you're just gonna let it happen? I don't know what's happening. He's acting weird and I don't know why, and he looks soft in my jersey with his wrists poking out of the sleeves, and his hair still damp from the shower. Like something out of a dream I didn't know I was having. I don't know, I'm confusing myself. You're an idiot. Thanks, Sammy, real helpful. Always. Phase 2, the lashes. Phase 1 had been a success. By Sakusa's metrics, Atsumu had fumbled 3 tosses the next day, which never happened, and kept glancing at Sakusa like he expected the jersey to still be there. It wasn't. Sakusa had returned it, washed and folded, left on top of Atsumu's bag with no explanation. Atsumu had stared at it for a solid 15 seconds before stuffing it into his locker like it was contraband. But the results were short-lived. By the following Monday, Atsumu was back to throwing quicks to Hinata, and laughing at something Bakuto said, and generally being an attention disaster. Sakusa, sitting on the bench and meticulously taping his fingers, felt irritation prickle up his spine. This required escalation. The opportunity came during a team dinner. The jackals had taken over the back corner of a yakiniku place, tables pushed together, smoke rising from the grills in fragrant clouds. Sakusa had positioned himself strategically, next to Atsumu, across from Hinata for observation purposes. Halfway through the meal, Atsumu was deep in conversation with Bakuto about some setter from the Adlers. And Tobio-kun's form is good, but it's so stiff, you know. Like he's got a pull-up. Sakusa, who had been waiting, turned to face him. He didn't do anything dramatic, that wasn't the point. He simply angled his body slightly, tilted his chin down, and looked up at Atsumu through his lashes. Slow blink, deliberate. Omi-kun. Atsumu's sentence had derailed. You need something? Sakusa let his voice go softer. Not much, just enough. Could you pass the salt? The salt was right in front of Atsumu. He'd been using it himself 3 minutes ago. Atsumu looked at the salt, looked at Sakusa, looked at the salt again. His hand moved, picked it up, and held it out. Sakusa took it. His fingers brushed Atsumu's knuckles, just barely. Thank you, Atsumu said, and it was barely a syllable, just an exhale with consonants attached. Bakuto, who had been mid-sentence throughout this entire exchange, said, Some. Hello? You still there? Hug? Atsumu turned back. His face was doing something complicated. Yeah. What were we? He lost the thread of his own sentence and had to be prompted twice. Sakusa salted his meat, said nothing. Inside, he was cataloguing every micro-expression, the flush creeping up Atsumu's neck, the way his fingers had twitched, the slight stutter in his breathing, all for research, cold, clinical research. He was definitely not enjoying this. Atsumu, meanwhile, was in hell, or possibly a very specific subset of heaven. He hadn't decided yet. Atsumu-san, Hinata said, sliding into the seat next to him at practice the next day. His eyes were bright and curious, and entirely too knowing. Why does Omi-san keep looking at you like that? Like what? Atsumu said he'd been stretching the same hamstring for 3 minutes. Like. Hinata squinted, visibly searching for the right word. Like you're a math problem he's trying to solve? But also like he wants you to know he's solving it. That doesn't make any sense, 𝙨𝙬𝙪. But it did. It made horrifying, perfect sense, because Sakusa Kiyomi, who hated crowds and unnecessary human contact, had been doing weird things. Things like standing closer during water breaks, close enough that Atsumu could smell his shampoo. Things like saying good toss, Mia, with actual eye contact instead of muttering it at the floor. Things like, and Atsumu's brain still short-circuited here, wearing Atsumu's jersey and blinking up at him like he was pretty and asking for the salt like it was a favor, and existing, generally, in a way that made Atsumu want to bite something. You're blushing. No, I'm not. Your ears are red. 𝙨𝙬𝙪, don't you have somewhere to be? Nope. This is way more interesting. Phase 3, the competition. Sakusa's third approach was direct. He'd seen the way Atsumu's eyes tracked him now, caught the glances that lingered a bit too long. The problem was that Atsumu still wasn't doing anything about it. He just looked confused and pink, and kept tossing balls slightly off target when Sakusa was watching. This was unsustainable. So one afternoon, in the middle of a water break, Sakusa leaned against the wall next to Hinata and said, conversationally, "Kageyama's setting has improved." Hinata blinked. Yet? He's always been good. His precision is impressive. Sakusa continued, loud enough to carry. And his game sense. Very few setters can read the court that quickly. Across the gym, Atsumu's head snapped around so fast Sakusa was surprised he didn't pull something. Of course he's not the only one. But you must miss playing with him sometimes, Hinata. Said Hinata, who was clearly picking up on the danger but couldn't identify its source. I mean, I guess. But Tsumu's great too. Tsumu's amazing. Atsumu had crossed half the gym. His smile was fixed in place, the same one he wore during press conferences, but his eyes were sharp. What's this about Tobio-kun? Nothing. Just discussing technique. Tobio-kun's technique. Among others. Atsumu's smile twitched. Well, Omi-kun, if you are so interested in Tobio-kun's technique, maybe you should go join the Adlers. It was childish petty, exactly what Sakusa had been hoping for. He lowered his water bottle and met Atsumu's eyes, letting his expression shift into something almost wounded. Would you want me to? The question hung in the air. Atsumu's irritation flickered, faltered, and then collapsed entirely. He looked at Sakusa, rarely looked, the way he did before a critical toss, like he was calculating distance and trajectory and risk, and his voice came out softer. No. Course not, don't be stupid. Sakusa let the silence stretch, then he said, quiet and private despite the audience. Good. Atsumu's breath caught visibly. His hand lifted, just slightly, like he was going to reach out, and then he shoved it into his pocket instead. I'm gonna. He gestured vaguely toward the court. I need to, yeah. He walked away. It was almost a retreat. Hinata stared at Sakusa, with the expression of someone who had just watched a nature documentary and wasn't sure who the predator was. Interlude, Atsumu's crisis. Samu. I'm dying. You said that last week. What did he do now? Omi said Tobio-kun's setting was good. Then he looked at me like I'd just kicked his puppy. Then he said good, all soft, and I almost kissed him. In front of 𝙨𝙖𝙠𝙪𝙖 and everyone. Okay, so you like him. I've always liked him. That's not new. What's new is him acting like he wants me to like him, like he's trying to make me. Is this what a stroke feels like? Probably not. I'm serious. He wore my jersey. He blinked at me, blinked with his eyelashes. His stupid long eyelashes that I've been ignoring for 2 years because I'm a professional. And then he talked about Tobio-kun like Tobio-kun was just some guy and not the human equivalent of a brick wall with setting talent, and I got jealous. Jealous of Tobio-kun. So what are you gonna do about it? I don't know. He's acting all weird and cute, and I can't figure out why, and I'm scared if I do something it'll stop. Whatever this is, even if it's killing me. You're hopeless. I know. Phase 4, the culmination. Sakusa's patience, never abundant, had worn thin. It had been 2 weeks of subtle overtures and strategic positioning, and Atsumu still hadn't done anything except look increasingly flustered and throw balls at slightly incorrect angles. Sakusa had played every card he could think of, the jersey, the eyelashes, the jealousy gambit, the soft voice. He'd even, in a moment of temporary insanity, accidentally touched Atsumu's wrist during a timeout, just to brush her fingers, and Atsumu had jumped like he'd been electrocuted. This was supposed to work. Sakusa Kirumi did not fail, and yet here he was, watching Atsumu laugh with Hinata again, that bright unguarded laugh that used to be aimed his way, and feeling something hot and unpleasant coil in his chest. He cornered Atsumu after practice. The gym had emptied. Hinata and Bakuto had left together, still chattering about something. The trainers had gone home. It was just the two of them under the fluorescent lights, and Sakusa had backed Atsumu against the equipment closet with nothing but his presence, and a very pointed stare. Omi-kun. The face you're doing right now is very intimidating. Did I do something wrong? Sakusa didn't answer immediately. He was cataloguing Atsumu's face, the slight furrow between his brows, the way his pulse fluttered visibly at his throat, the faint chapped spot on his lower lip where he'd been biting it irritating. Everything about him was irritating. You've been distracted. Huh? Your tosses your attention, you're not focused. Atsumu's expression flickered. I'm focused. I'm always focused. I'm the most focused setter in the whole damn league. You've been focused on Hinata. The words landed. Atsumu's mouth opened, then closed. His head tilted, a small confused movement. 𝙨𝙬𝙪. He's the new guy, I gotta work with him, figure out his timin. You used to stay late with me. It came out before Sakusa could stop it. Less a calculated move, and more a truth he hadn't meant to speak aloud. He felt his face heat, and hoped the gym lighting hid it. Omi. Forget it. No, wait. Atsumu's hand caught his wrist, gentle, nothing like the grip he used on a volleyball, and Sakusa's heart kicked against his ribs. Is that what this has been about? Sakusa stared at the point of contact. Atsumu's fingers were warm and his palm was slightly calloused, and he wasn't letting go. I don't know what you're talking about, Sakusa said, to the floor. The jersey. The Saltatobio-kun thing. He made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a wheeze. Omi, were you trying to get my attention? No. You're a terrible liar. Sakusa's jaw tightened. You're very annoying and I don't know why I bother. Atsumu was smiling now, not his usual grin, or teeth and bravado, but something smaller, softer, private, in a way that made Sakusa's chest ache. You could have just said something. I shouldn't have had to say anything. You're supposed to be observant. You read blockers for a living. Blockers are easier. Blockers don't have curly hair and scary eyes and a habit of stealing my clothes. His thumb moved, just slightly, against the inside of Sakusa's wrist. Omi, I've been losing my mind for 2 weeks. Do ya know that? I thought I was hallucinating. I thought I wanted something so bad I started seeing it everywhere. Sakusa's breath stuttered. Wanted what? You. The word was simple, unadorned. Atsumu's ears were red but his gaze was steady. Always you? I just didn't think, I didn't know. I wore your jersey in front of the entire team. I thought it was an accident. What kind of accident would that possibly be? I dunno. Laundry mix-up. We have different numbers, different names. Sakusa's voice was climbing toward incredulous. How could you possibly think? Because you're you. All pretty and particular, and you hate when people touch their stuff, and I'm annoying and loud and I never shut up, and I figured you tolerated me cause we're teammates and maybe friends if I was lucky, and I wasn't gonna push it because I didn't want to lose what we had. Okay. That's why. Silence. Sakusa stared at him. Atsumu stared back, breathing a little hard, like he'd just finished a rally. You're an idiot. Atsumu. The name, his actual name, without any honorific, stopped Atsumu's breathing entirely. His fingers tightened on Sakusa's wrist. Say that again. No. Kirumi. Don't push your luck. But Sakusa was smiling, barely just the corner of his mouth, the faintest curve, and Atsumu looked at him like he'd hung the moon. I'm gonna kiss you now. If that's, is that. If you ask one more question I'm leaving. Atsumu didn't ask. Later, much later, they sat side by side on the gym floor with their backs against the wall, shoulders touching. Atsumu's hand was intertwined with Sakusa's on the hardwood, and he kept glancing down at it like he expected it to disappear. So, the jersey thing, that was on purpose. Yes. The eyelash thing. Also on purpose. The Tobio-kun thing. Sakusa tilted his head. That was a tactical decision. Omi, you seduce me. You orchestrated an entire campaign to seduce me. I don't know what you're talking about. Atsumu laughed, bright and helpless, and dropped his forehead onto Sakusa's shoulder. You wore my jersey. You talked about my rival to make me jealous. You batted your eyelashes. Atsumu lifted his head, and his eyes were so warm, so unbearably fond, that Sakusa had to look away. "Yeah, stuck with me now, no take-backs." Sakusa was quiet for a moment, then he said, very softly, "Good." Atsumu's smile could have lit the entire gym.